It's 7:34, News Radio 970, WFLA. Weather's next.
Want to know the secret?
And as you listen to The South's Gonna Do It Again, that's the song that Jeff Kirkendall has selected for us here on this segment of AM Tampa Bay at 7:40, because our guest is H.K. Edgerton, former NAACP branch president and advocate of Southern civil rights. And our topic of conversation here today is the War Between the States Memorial here at the Hillsborough Veterans Park. And if you've never been there, everybody ought to visit sometime. They have memorials to every war, and particularly the involvement of the people of Hillsborough County in it. It's on 301 South, just south of MLK, and just before you get to the river on the west side, you'll see a big sign and the entry to the Veterans Memorial Park, and there is a War Between the States Memorial. But H.K. Edgerton is not happy about the design of it. And let me pull that mic down real close to you, and tell us what you don't like about the design of the War Between the States Memorial.
Well, it's not so much about the design itself. It's about what has happened about that design. All those veterans out there fought for the Constitution of the United States of America. And I don't believe not one single one in any war would like the content discrimination that's been played out against the Southland of America and its veterans. For me, looking at the lawsuit, and I think everyone should read the contents of this lawsuit, because it is tantamount to the same kinds of things that took us to war in the first place. Total disregard for the Constitution, total disregard for laws. What has happened out there and what your council allowed to happen out there, for me, I believe every member of your council should be dismissed from office for what they allowed to happen, and certainly their lack of even coming up with answers to why they did such a thing. Black folks who claim to demand justice, and we are the weapon of choice been used against white folks in the Southland of America ever since General Lee signed that treaty. They are to be as incensed about the bigotry and the guilt that's been showed towards Southern people, and they shouldn't continue to turn a blind eye to this thing, because we are being used as the weapon of choice. My flag in the Southland of America, we earn a place of honor and dignity under that flag. And I believe that if any citizen who reads the lawsuit that is being brought forth against Les Miller, who chairs the council, and the council itself, not in his personal capacity, but as a council member, your citizens will not be happy about what takes place there, because if you do it, and even Northerners that I met a great deal yesterday as I walked the boardwalk, the river walk, they didn't like some of the things that's happening around here as it relates to our flag. The past commander of the Union veterans, was a part of this groundbreaking ceremony that took place out there. You can't go against the people's trust and do what these folks have done. The very same thing that Abraham Lincoln did is what your council is doing right now. And it's the same thing that took the folks in Florida to the point of secession. There's nothing no different that's happening out there now. There's nothing any different that's happening in Florida. And I also think that your Attorney General, Ms. Pam Bundy, her interpretation of Federal Law 425, Section 10, calling it her informal interpretation, she ought to be whipped for doing what she did.
Well, let me point out, first of all, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but there were a lot of black veterans of the War Between the States, or the Civil War, who fought for the South, and they are being honored out there too. And that's a shock to some people. And all of this flap began over the flag and everything else when we had that massacre in Charleston. And it was very unfortunate. The guy was pictured with a Confederate flag, and all of a sudden they associated that with the massacre. And it just ain't that way. I mean, they're trying to all of a sudden say, well, anybody that adheres to that flag or anything like that is responsible for that massacre, and that's just not the case.
Well, I love you for saying that. And as a matter of fact, I got kind of scared myself the many times that I visited the Battle of Columbia and handed that flag to babies just like that young man there. I thought maybe they might come and get me. But to have the Southern Cross in your hand and that's Southern. That's all it is to it. And unfortunately, the media is the ones who helped orchestrate that thing. They came and looked at the battle at the monument and said, oh, my God, those mean sons of Confederate veterans didn't even bring that flag down to half-staff. They knew full well that the sons of Confederate veterans couldn't bring it down. The United Daughters of the Confederacy couldn't bring it down. The only people who could touch that flag was the South Carolina legislature. And when the media found out that it was a lie, they went searching to find the picture of that young man. The flag had nothing to do with it.
Why does Black Lives Matter want to do away with everything Southern?
Because they're agents of the North, and all those folks who come here to occupy our land and Southern social cultural genocide. You know, they came to my hometown and went to Zebulon Vance and General Robert E. Lee's monument and spray painted Black Lives Matter. Well, you know, it's nothing but total hypocrisy because they were at the right monument. Abraham Lincoln was given a letter that was sent to him by a black woman. And in that letter, she asked him, "Dear Honorable Sir, would you please see that the surgeons take care of the black Union soldiers? They're just letting them die." In the Confederate Army, the same man who brought Jedediah into that world and his master Ben looked after him. She also said into that letter, "Honorable Sir, would you please see that the black Union soldier gets the same pay for the same job as the Union soldier gets?" In the Confederate Army, even though that man wasn't there legally, those Confederate soldiers divvied up their money and they made sure that the black Confederate soldier got the same pay for the same job that all the white soldiers did, because their lives matter. All lives matter. In the Southland of America, I don't care. You can talk about in lieu of the economic institution of slavery that the whole world was complicit in, black lives have always mattered around here. So it's a lie. On the same day that young man killed those 9 people, over 42 people were killed by other black folks in the city, in Barack Obama's Chicago. You telling me that Black Lives Matter? 2 days later, a black minister walked out of his church and his own brother killed him. Black Lives Matter. They have always mattered to the Christian white folks in the Southland of America, and I am tired of my folks being duped about this thing. You know, your head council member didn't want to talk to me, Mr. Miller, as I attended his church on last Sunday. Let me tell you something. I had a great time up in there at his church and the reception that his parishioners gave to us. He should have talked to me. Why is it that you don't want to talk? Why you don't want to have dialogue? Same thing that Abraham Lincoln did to the Peace Commission that was sent to Washington to talk to him. I'm glad you asked me about Black Lives Matter, because they do. To Southern white folks, all lives matter.
Well, I'll tell you what, you're doing it. And you got the lawsuit going against it, too. You want to let the lawyer talk about that real quickly here? We got about a minute
David
ago.
McCallister.
Well, the members of the subcommittee that were all volunteers that had stepped up to work with the park as directed by the county to develop a monument at the theater for recognizing this conflict. We proposed to call it War Between the States, which is a popular name in the South. People come down here, they expect to see that name. It's also the name of the conflict on the Iwo Jima Monument, on the Marines Monument. It's also on the Natural Bridge Monument. If it's good enough for Tallahassee, if it's good enough for the Marines, I think it ought to be good enough for Hillsborough County. And our design incorporates a Maltese cross design that is used by the VA on the headstones of Confederate veterans. One of the principles here is that of the 24 men that died from Hillsborough County in this conflict, they were all on the Confederate side.
Yeah.
And most of them are lying in unmarked graves in Kennesaw Mountain, Chattanooga, Chickamauga, places like that. This is their headstone. This is their monument.
Yeah, and I know there's a conflict over that. Well, we appreciate you coming in here because H.K. Edgerton, you are a very special person, and I know a lot of people are surprised to hear what you have to say, but you're wising a lot of people up here, I think, and we certainly thank you for coming in this morning. It looks great, too. We're going to get some pictures and get them on our website at 970WFLA.com/AMTB, but H.K. Edgerton, former NAACP branch president and advocate of Southern civil rights. Thanks for being on board here this morning, sir.
Thank you, HK.
God bless you all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so very, very much for having me. It is a great honor.